It's Q1, and that means new goals, more growth, and upgrading your day-to-day workflow. While most sales folks are stuck in the mud of manual scheduling, digging into data, and tracking down leads, let me share a better way to win. The new HubSpot Sales Hub is filled with easy-to-use and powerful tools that make closing deals and collaborating across departments a breeze. Sales Hub is an all-in-one platform for converting contacts into customers, accelerating sales with smarter sequences, managing deals with simple and powerful tools, and forecasting targets and smarter sales insights. Plus, you can supercharge your work with AI-powered apps like ChatSpot. ChatSpot combines the power of ChatGPT and your HubSpot Smart CRM to give you a Gen AI-powered personal assistant. It's tailor-made to help you grow your business and deliver more revenue. Ask it to track down contacts, research competitors, summarize last week's sales, or draft on-message emails in seconds. Sales Hub is focused on helping you work smarter, not harder, so you can get after all those other New Year's goals. Close more deals and get on track for your best Q1 yet. Explore the new HubSpot Sales Hub and AI tools like ChatSpot at HubSpot.com/sales. All right, good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, January 4th. I'm Jon Weigell here with Mark Dent, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. Gen Z is making it even harder for marketers to reach them as they embrace the privacy of group chats. Many Gen Zers prefer group chats to connect with their friends versus being bombarded with ads on social media, which is very understandable. But how are brands looking to infiltrate apps like Discord to reach this tech-savvy generation? More on that in a bit, but first let's give you some hits and headlines today across business and tech. First up, Chipotle and fitness app Strava are partnering on a new promotion where Strava added new walking and running segments to its app, which all end at Chipotle locations, where users can compete against one another to earn free bowls. Because what's the best thing to have after a run? A barbacoa bowl with queso. Yes. Starbucks is now letting customers use their own cups for drive-through and mobile app orders. Personal cups were previously limited to in-store purchases, but now they're a big move towards Starbucks' goal of a 50% waste reduction by 2030. That's a kind of a big deal, eh, Mark?
Yeah, it's a major thing to shoot for. I'm mostly interested, though, in kind of just seeing how this actually rolls out. As Starbucks kind of explained to CNN, they're going to have these contactless vessels, which is the word that they use, between someone who comes in the drive-thru with a cup of their own and somebody who comes into the store and orders on the app. You put your cup in a contactless vessel and then it gets filled. And I just really want to see how this rolls out.
All right, but while waste goes down, debt is going way up. America's national debt just hit a record $34 trillion for the first time ever. And this is just 3 months after clearing the $33 trillion debt for the first time. Speaking of some great achievements, a 13-year-old gamer became the first person to push Tetris to its absolute functional limit, reaching the game's final screen. The task, which is believed to be impossible 34 years into the game's existence, took 40 minutes and the alignment of over 1,500 block lines. Next up, in some EV news, Rimac, the Croatian EV maker known for super fast electric sports cars and its primary stake in Bugatti, is looking to launch its own robotaxi fleet by 2026. With companies like Waymo, it seems like we're entering our robotaxi era here in 2024. And finally, last night, the Indiana Pacers became the first U.S. pro sports team to display a QR code on their regular jerseys, adding a patch for tech sponsor Spoke Note that leads to exclusive team content. Mark, what do you think about this integration of the great QR code on sports jerseys?
I suppose that it was something that was bound to happen sooner or later. The QR code has just become so ubiquitous in our daily lives, which is frankly wild considering like in 2019, I mean, whoever used the QR code, I don't even know that I was really even sure how to use one. I'd forgotten from like 2007 or 2009 or something whenever I had first used one. But it is interesting because, the entire sort of selling of sports jerseys, particularly in America, is a new phenomenon. I think it was just 2017 that the NBA became the first American league to allow sponsorships on the front of jerseys. And now it's like this QR code. And for now, the Pacers say that they're going to use it to kind of show fans like content, the word everybody likes to use. They're going to just show fans a lot more content,
Just
I guess.
content.
And it could be some never before seen content, they say. I also just, from a practical standpoint, we're talking about that contactless vessel that I'm curious to see how it works. I'm curious to see how many people are going to be able to actually scan the QR code on a jersey. I mean, I guess if you're like looking at one in a store, but like on your TV screen, that seems quite difficult.
Yeah, it seems difficult for fans in attendance and at home. I personally struggle to scan the QR code at those restaurants that now have QR code menus.
Right.
So I don't know how people in the audience, or especially watching live at home, are going to be able to scan that QR code. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll test it out next week. Maybe we'll watch a game or something.
Hey, I mean, the Pacers are pretty good this year. So
yeah, no, keep an eye on them. All right, and for our top story today, we're talking about Gen Z's love affair with group chats and similar community-based apps. The group chat preference is something that's confounding brands that are trying their hardest to get noticed and ultimately paid by Gen Z. But what exactly is Gen Z's spending power, and what's the main story here, Mark?
Yeah, so Gen Z, like you said, is this group of young people, which is the group that brands always want to get. They always want to hook them. And Gen Z is starting to enter some of its spending prime. And it's estimated that they hold around $450 billion plus in spending power already. And that number, of course, is only going to go up as more of them enter the workforce and more of them get sort of promoted into higher paying jobs. And so since time immemorial, or at least since people tried to sell each other things, they've been wanting to advertise, I guess, to get people to spend that. And it's just gotten to be a little bit more complicated with Gen Z because some of the kind of tried and true methods for advertising, they aren't so popular with Gen Zers.
Yeah, and it seems like that's a big problem for a lot of advertisers. I mean, we've talked about targeted ads before and influencer marketing before, and it seems like Gen Z is kind of trying to dodge those bullets a little more and kind of getting more into their own private spaces.
Exactly. Like people, I think, are avoiding social media for all kinds of different reasons, right now. But certainly one of those reasons is that it is just full of ads. I mean, you look at X, you look at Facebook, Instagram. I mean, it's just ads galore. And that is unappealing. And so, yes, a lot of Gen Zers have been going to things like Discord and Geneva and these other kind of like private group chat spaces where they kind of have their own sort of social media on there with their friends. And, the problem with that, according to Digiday, is advertisers are pretty flummoxed about how to get the word out into those private spaces, which is quite obvious. Like those spaces are private because they want to get away from you. And now the advertisers are like, well, what do we do now?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that, I mean, I would never have thought that this would happen because it's kind of, as Sarah writes in her article, it's kind of retro a little bit. It's a bit kind of back in the day throwback for Gen Z to be wanting to get off social media and get more into these private spaces. But, we've seen brands like, I'm an avid Discord user, and I see brands all the time like Wendy's actually made a Discord community, and brands like that are just kind of getting in there, making these communities so that people can come to them and chat, I guess, about their product or about their brand. So it kind of feels like they're creating these small micro Twitters or micro X's across these various sites to kind of fuel their brand. But I genuinely don't know how to get people to join a Wendy's Discord, and I don't know how they've been doing it.
Right. Like I think that these sort of experiments are just experiments right now, and it's unclear how successful they've been for companies like Wendy's. I mean, according to Vogue, there have been a lot more sort of luxury brands that have tried to do this. I mean, there's even like a sort of like consulting firm that kind of helps them to do this. But wow. It's kind of like, that's one thing where I think people have like a natural, because those are luxury brands, there's sort of like more of a desire to listen, I suppose, and perhaps jump into a Discord that's brought to you by like Sotheby's rather than Wendy's.
Yeah.
Whereas, Wendy's, it's just kind of like, I mean, when I hear about like a Discord started by a brand, it just makes me think of like that famous meme of the "How do you do, fellow kids?" I mean, there's no getting around it.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, unless they take it to some interesting measures, like maybe, dangling that discount carrot in front of everybody's face, it might be a little hard to get people on. But I see what you're saying with luxury brands. Like I see also Gucci is listed as a brand that's made a Discord server. And with a brand like that, maybe, I don't know, if they're offering like a nice I don't know, 4% discount on anything. That's pretty sizable for Gucci. So maybe they'll be interested in that.
Yeah. And it's, it's interesting too, because while we are seeing a lot of people starting to use, Discord and some of these other kind of chat apps, I mean, there are still massive audiences on social media. They're just not growing like they used to. And the
Sure.
same is true for like ad spend on social media. Like I was looking up a few statistics to kind of just see like, what it is. And I mean, we're talking like in the US, something like $60 billion per year is used on social media ad spend. And you're talking even more than that is on online ad spend. And then even more than that is used on more traditional things still, like TV and just sort of like what we would think of as sort of more like legacy media. So it's interesting that like, brands are certainly having to dabble sort of in this new realm, but like, I mean, the bulk of their spending is still going to what we would consider more traditional things.
Yeah, sure. And it's also, I think, of note to talk about what new avenues for advertising that we've seen as of late in kind of the next stage of this whole trend being like places like Fortnite and Roblox to get to those kids, and Retro, which is a ChatGPT powered messaging app for Gen Z users that people have started to use as well. So there seem to be a lot of new avenues opening up as well. And as traditional media, as we talked about, TV, magazines start to maybe decline a little more, places like this seem to be popping up now.
Right. And I think it just kind of gets back to how are you going to be able to like advertise to people in a relatively authentic way, in a way that doesn't appear invasive. I mean, a lot of those ads on social media, I mean, they do feel somewhat invasive. Yet, like at the same time, if you're on Twitter or X rather, and you're just kind of scrolling, like, yeah, you'll probably notice when something's an ad, but it still kind of looks like a regular post. But to me, it's going to be even more jarring if I'm in like a private group chat and all of a sudden I see an advertisement for like a fast food hamburger. Like, I mean, my friends and I might talk about fast food a little bit, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, here's to hoping that they find less intrusive ways to enter our space in the near future. Okay, well, that'll do it for us today here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the Hustle Daily Show. We are a proud part of the HubSpot podcast network. Our editor today is Ezra Trupiano, and our executive producer is Darren Clarke. We've got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get yourself signed up at thehustle.co/email, and we'll see you tomorrow, everybody. All right, everybody. I've been listening to this podcast lately. It's fantastic. It's called DTC Pod, hosted by Ramon Barrios and Blaine Bolus. It's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, which is the audio destination for business professionals. DTC Pod is a podcast about all things direct to consumer, as it says in the title. Ramon and Blaine cover everything from starting, growing, and optimizing e-commerce stores and DTC or D2C brands. They have a lot of great conversations with founders, marketers, platforms, creators, and marketing and growth agencies to cover all these topics like brand building, social media, influencer marketing, website conversion, paid media, Facebook ads, consumer trends, email marketing, and much, much more, if you could even believe it. If you're interested in stories behind your favorite consumer brands, this podcast is tailor-made for you. Just the other day, I was listening to an episode and their guest was Mikey Taylor. Mikey started as a professional skateboarder and flipped his life into becoming a huge entrepreneur dealing in real estate, owning his own brewing company, and also owning a skateboard company called Sovereign Skateboards. This guy really flipped his life into something insane, and it's so cool to listen to how he did it every single step of the way. Definitely go check that episode out. It's really, really inspiring. And you can listen to DTC Pod wherever you get your podcasts.